It was such an exciting weekend in the Premier League with so many amazing results coming our way. One of such saw Arsenal fight from the brink of defeat to pick up a very valuable 3 points in their fight for our top four finish in the Premier League. But then the next weekend even promises a better excitement. We're talking about the Manchester Derby. Manchester City are up against Manchester United. And then the fight for the title, Liverpool are in for a big time because they're going to be up against a West Ham side who've seen very, very good results under the guidance of David Moyes. My name is Joseph Faulkner, and you're listening to Game On. It's a vlog where we bring you some excitement, we bring you analysis, banter, we throw all kinds of jibes at each other, but in a very, very friendly atmosphere. I'm Joseph Faulkner, like I told you. I'm in the company of two great guys. Femi Oyedola is in on this one. Femi, how's it going?
Wow, Kali, thank you so much. It's going great, and what a pleasure to be back on the call tonight again, just to look ahead and to what's definitely going to be an absolutely brilliant weekend, but also to take a look back at what was a very fruitful weekend for a lot of teams in the Premier League. None more than possibly we want to say the great Arsenal, but also Man City, making sure they're not losing ground to Liverpool, who are definitely on their coattails. So what an exciting time to be watching the Premier League. And a quick mention of Burnley as well, who came back from the dead, but they seem to be going back into the grave again now. So, yeah, brilliant times. Thank you very much, Kali. Let's put our teeth into this.
Yeah, we're going to put our teeth into this. It's not just Femi and I on this one. We've also got Eddie Oppo in this one. Eddie, great to have you back on this.
Fantastic, Kali. Absolutely, I'm buzzing, because it's been an absolutely exciting round of Premier League matches, and this weekend even promises even more. So welcome to Game On. We're really excited to come and have some conversations and chats about the Premier League, and we've got something in store for you today. So listen on.
One quick mention, guys. It was at some point, it looked like at the weekend, Arsenal weren't going to, there was no way back for Arsenal against Wolverhampton Wanderers. Remember 2 weeks ago, Wolves lost at home to Arsenal, and it was like a revenge mission. After that Gabriel mistake, Wolves sat back, and it looked like they were in for a famous victory at the Emirates. Was there any point before the goal came in that either of you guys thought Arsenal could do the job against Wolves?
I mean, look, that game had everything. There was a lot of tension. You could feel the tension before the game. You could feel the excitement. You could feel two teams that had something to prove. There was a lot left over after the last game. So for me, there was always that element of surprise because you never knew what Wolves were going to do. And got to give your hands to Arsenal. Got to give your hands to Mikel Arteta. He made some very critical substitutions that actually won that game for Arsenal. Not the substitutions coming in, we probably wouldn't have won that game. So, great combination. The two substitutes for the goal, with Pepe, and then, of course, Laka creating that goal. But what an emotional celebration from the Arsenal fans and players.
Very, very interesting. But Femi, is this a statement of intent from Arsenal? This is the kind of game years back Arsenal will comfortably lose. 20 minutes to the end of the game, still trailing by a goal. It looks like Wolves have set up all the roadblocks in this world, and it looked like there was no way through. Is this a statement of intent from Arteta and his team?
I think, like you said, many years ago, you probably would have backed Arsenal to come back from the dead, but the last 4 or 5 years, it's not been the same. So when things were looking better, and we all know that Wolves haven't lost a single game where they've scored the first goal in 46 odd games. So you knew you had your backs against the wall. You knew you really had to fight hard. And what Arsenal did was incredible. So I definitely would say it was a statement of intent, because the last time Arsenal scored a goal so late like that was way back in 2017. When the famous, now not so famous Alexis Sanchez scored that 97th minute winner against Burnley. So it's been a long time that Arsenal came from the dead in such a game. I mean, you could see the atmosphere in the stadium. It was electric. Poor luck for the goalkeeper, Jose Sarr, being credited with the own goal. But does it matter when you're at home and you've scored in the 95th minute? Does it ever matter?
It doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't. All right, quickly. One word on from each of you on the EFL Cup final, the Carabao Cup final. What a game that was! Full of excitement, full of actions, and controversy as well. At the end of the day, it ended up in penalty shootouts, and the man that was brought on to be the savior ended up being the villain of the game. One word from both of you on that game, starting with you, Femi.
Well, it's incredible when you look at the fact that two teams that you could back to score goals played out a nil-nil scoreline, you know. So it was the greatest nil-nil you would ever see. And I mean, they had penalties, they had all sorts of, disallowed goals. It just was the classic cup final. You would have thought it was an FA Cup final, actually. You would not even remember it was the Carabao Cup. It was that fantastic. But then, memories of the last time Kepa came off the bench. Kepa had actually refused to go on the bench. This time around, he came off the bench. And the last time Chelsea did it, worked for them, didn't it? But this time around, that penalty, that last penalty is still traveling. They can't find the ball still, can they?
Someone said they found the ball in Lagos.
He lost his head, didn't he, Kepa? The most expensive goalkeeper in the world. And I hear hints that Mendy is a great penalty taker. So maybe Mendy would have won it for them if he had been the one to take that penalty. But hindsight is a great thing to have when things have already happened. So 11 penalties and everybody converting theirs for the Liverpool team. So you just could not write the script. So many disallowed goals, 3 of them for offside. And Mason Mount is not going to sleep well. I'm sure he's not been sleeping for the last 3 days. So
very sure of that as well.
Game. And I'm sure Eddie's got his own thoughts on the game as well.
Well, very quickly, I think for me, I couldn't fault the teams. I think both teams went out there, trying to do the business. Never seen so many VAR decisions, and over the bar. I think that was just, the climax of the whole thing. I know people are talking about Kepa coming in, but hindsight is a wonderful thing. He could have come in and been the hero. So I think, congratulations to both teams for actually putting a show, for everybody to see, even though it was 0-0. I still feel it's always a very painful way to lose a cup final. You want it to be settled in 90 minutes. I personally don't always like the penalties to decide because there's just so much that you cannot control. So it was a great game. But I have to say, Chelsea is so unlucky.
Yeah, one of the things I agree with Femi on is maybe if Mendy had stayed in goal, he could have. Because when I saw the substitution, one of the things I said where I was watching was, no, let Mendy stay there. He just won the AFCON, saving 2 penalties in that final. He's a man in form. He's a man full of confidence. 120 minutes, he produced some very, very inspiring scenes to ensure Chelsea remain in the game. But hey, at the end of the day, like we say, hindsight is always a very, very clear vision. But let's move into the weekend. Next game week in the Premier League, some very mouth-watering ties. Up from Sunday all the way to Monday evening in the Premier League. Now, guys, quick one. Let's start with the early kickoff on Saturday. Leeds United finally fired their manager. Oh well, the words they used was they parted ways with mutual consent, whatever that means.
He was fired.
He was fired. Because my results were not going their way, and the man was fired. I felt it. I felt they stayed too long firing him. I felt it should have happened a long time before now. But then there's a temporary man in charge while they try to sort out, the permanent person. A new manager bounce. Is that going to be a factor when Leeds play away at a Leicester City that has Jimmy Vardy back in their fold?
Two teams that are very indifferent right now, in my opinion. I think that, Leeds, it was like watching paint dry. You knew that it was going to happen. It was just taking so long, for them to pull the trigger. Now, they've got good players, no question about that. I think Leeds, will definitely bounce back. I don't see this game anything more than a draw because I look at the two teams that are very inconsistent. You would expect that Leicester would have the edge because they're at home. However, I see both teams struggle, in this game. confidence, from Leeds. Manager bounced back. I don't know whether there's enough time, for that to really happen. So we'll just have to see. If I want to go with a team, I would rather say maybe Leicester, just because they're at home. But I expect Leeds to put up a good fight.
But Femi, what do you put Leicester's poor form? What do you put it down to? Leicester, for several seasons now, they might not be that team that will fight for the top four, being a fight for the title race and all that. But they are one of those teams in the Premier League that you can vouch for to at least finish in the top 7, top 8 since they won the title. But what do you put down their recent poor form to? Is it the loss of form by Jimmy Vardy, the inconsistency in James Maddison, Iheanacho, and the rest of them not pulling their weight? What exactly will you put their bad form, to?
I think it's just a very simple reason, and you've seen it happen to many teams. But you could also say a combination of reasons. I think the bigger reason is the absence of Jamie Vardy, because he's their kingpin. He's just the guy who gets the goals. Now, Iheanacho has been brilliant, but also he was away on AFCON duty, wasn't? And Maddison came into his own for a while, but also he's always a bit of a hit and miss with Maddison. He has a stretch of great games and then he disappears. He hasn't totally disappeared, with every credit to him. But I think the biggest reason of all is the fact that Vardy has not been playing. And look at him back in among the goals. A goal and an assist against Burnley. You can't knock that for a striker who's just been, even though he's well over 30, he's been absolutely brilliant in the Premier League. So yes, that's the biggest reason. But also when you've got the Europa League and now it's the Europa Conference. Even the manager said he didn't know they were in the competition. Did he? So that's the funny thing. When your mind is distracted, it's very hard to actually win games. You need all the focus you want in the world. So I would say Jamie Vardy, and of course, when you're playing on Thursday and Sunday, it can really hamper your performances. And remember, they lost a lot of players to the African Cup of Nations, none more than our own wonderful Nigerian. Ndidi is a rock in the middle for them, and when he's not there, it's always going to be a problem. Iheanacho has been in fine form as well, so I'll say it's a combination of reasons for Leicester.
I just to say something very quickly before we move on. I think they concede too many goals. If you look at it, Leicester have only conceded 2 less goals than Newcastle, and we can almost say that Newcastle are fighting for their lives down the bottom of the table. So they concede too many goals, and you can't really shoot up the table if you're doing that. No matter if you're struggling for scoring goals. Look at Wolves. They don't score a lot of goals, but they don't concede as well, and that always helps you. So they concede too many goals. They need to shore up that defense if they've got any chance, moving up the table.
That's fantastic. Good spot, Eddie.
So now let's look at this. Let's break down Leeds a little bit more. Leeds for 2 seasons, looked the part. Comfortable mid-table team. Yes, they just came from the championship and they took the league by storm, surprised everybody, but then all of a sudden this season it has been totally, they've been way out of it. But then one thing that has been a constant, even when they were doing pretty well, is the fact that they were conceding goals for fun. But what they were doing, differently was they were outscoring teams. And the loss of one player, is that enough? Talking about Patrick Bamford, is that enough to make Leeds impotent in front of goal?
It's not, but then the problem you have it has if you look at his replacements, James has been in attack, he's not been very effective. Tyler Roberts, he can't kick a ball. He's just, with every respect to him, he's not been Premier League quality, has he? So yes, a player should not be enough, but the problem is, look at Aston Villa Leeds was 3-3. So they can't score goals, Leeds. But then what you want to think of is, can you score goals regularly? And when you're beating 3-0 by Everton, 6-0 by Liverpool, 4-0 by Tottenham, then you know that yes, you may be able to score today. And with every respect, it's like the Arsenal team at the minute. There are no goal scorers, out and out goal scorers in that team. But some days we go and score 3 goals. But usually, you're not going to get more than 1 or 2 goals maximum in a game with Arsenal. So the good thing is we've got the guys at the back, and Ramsdale doing a great job. Just like Eddie said of Wolves, They're probably not scoring 100 goals in the season, or they're not going to score 100 goals, but they'll show it up. And Leeds were never, ever want to show it up at the back. They were always going to have a go at you. And if you have a goal and you have 10, 20 chances and there's nobody to really expertly put the ball in the back of the net, you will have games where you score 3-3, like they did against Aston Villa, but that's not going to happen all the time. They will end up more losing 3-0 to Everton, 6-0 to Leeds, and 4-0 to Tottenham, and then you get the manager out of the job. And they've attracted Jesse March, who genuinely, I don't think, I mean, they've given him a 3.5-year deal. He doesn't even have the pedigree, only that he's really gone to RB Leipzig. And Leipzig only brought him in because they lost Julian Nagelsmann to Bayern Munich. So without that, I don't think he would have definitely gotten the job. Watching at New York Red Bulls or Salzburg, those are not really places where you want to cut your teeth and then come.
They're not top side.
So they're in more trouble, Leeds United, I believe. It will take a miracle for them to stay above relegation waters. But in the end, I think they've got the players. They might survive if Bamford comes back.
Okay, so but Eddie, what's the first thing March needs to sort out in this team?
I would say the first thing is that they need more goals from the midfield. Right now, they only get very little goals from the midfield. And actually, the forward line hasn't done too bad. Rafinha has scored about 9 goals, this season for Leeds. Combined total, they've scored about 16 goals against all their forwards. That's not bad. Most teams in the Premier League would be happy with that production. So what they need now is other people picking up the load. I love the way Leeds play, right? They play very entertaining. So for me, their strength is going forward. I wouldn't want them to change that, but what they need is that they need people in the midfield to start to chip in more goals, because that starts to add confidence to the back line. Because now they are not thinking, if we concede now, it's an uphill battle. We've got midfielders chipping in goals. The forwards are doing the job. I think they'll be okay. I have a lot of promise for Leeds. I think they just need to get more goals from the midfield. Need to settle down a little bit more, play in phases, during the game, and manage the game a little bit more. And I think maybe this new manager, if I were him, the first thing I'll be going to say is, let's manage these games better, because we always seem like we're berserk when we're playing. It's like almost like we don't recognize, where we need to hold and when we need to go forward. So that would be my thoughts on what they can do.
All right. So guys, let's pick this up quickly. Let's look at the battle for now. First of all, how many teams are in the running for the title? I'm putting it to both of you. How many teams are in the running for the title in the Premier League?
There are only 2 teams, to be fair. It's Liverpool and Man City. Chelsea don't have the staying power right now. They've got the distraction of Russia and their owner.
Chelsea's out of it.
So that's not going to help matters, is it?
So Chelsea's out of it.
100% yes.
You agree to that, Eddie?
No, I don't. I don't agree to that, because I think that there's still a lot of games to be played. Now, obviously, the front runners are Manchester and Liverpool, but I see other teams making a difference in that top table. Who would have thought Man City would have had the game that they had last weekend? And Liverpool could be having a similar sort of game against West Ham this weekend. So I think that there is still a lot to be played for. We gotta let a few more games pass before we can rule it out that it's a 2-horse race. I still think Chelsea are still in the mix. It's a far cry, but I don't think that is decided yet.
They're out of it. Femi is busy shaking his head. But before
I am, because if you look at it, if you're chasing one team, like Liverpool were chasing Man City, there's a chance they will sleep up. But when you're chasing 2 excellent teams and you're 10 points off the pace with only 10 games to go, you're not going to have the 2 of them have bad weekends every week. So, and you've got to win your games as well. So if it was one team, then I could have some hope. I always had the little hope for Liverpool, because all Man City had to do was lose, Liverpool win, and then the doubt sets in. But when you have 2 excellent teams, you're in dead waters. But maybe Eddie is a fortune teller, so we'll wait.
The reason why I'm saying that is because I've looked at their games, right? The games that are coming up for them, right? Yeah. Liverpool play West Ham, then they play Brighton, they play Arsenal, they play Man United. These are not very easy games, right? Anything can happen in those games. And then they play Man City, again, very, very shortly before they wrap up, April. So there's still a lot that can change there. I don't expect them to be flawless, in those next couple of games. That's why I look at it and think there's a lot that can still change.
Okay, very interesting. Let's look, since we're talking about the title race. Manchester City are in the Manchester Derby with United this weekend. We know how feisty that can be. But first of all, late game on Saturday, Liverpool are up against West Ham United.
West Ham.
And you know why I laughed? West Ham United under David Moyes they're a totally different team. They're a more organized team. They're a very, very very organized team, very stubborn team. They're difficult to break down. And they're going up against Liverpool. Now, Femi, you pointed out something. You said, was it Eddie that pointed it out? Femi, you pointed it out that Man City had their own blip. They lost a game that most people would have never thought they would lose. The same thing can happen to Liverpool against West Ham. Let's talk about West Ham for a bit. West Ham under David Moyes has been a totally different thing. Up against Liverpool, how can they get a result from that game? The way they are set up, the way they play against the Liverpool side that will run at you for 90 minutes, how do you get a point of Liverpool?
Well, the first thing you want to do is be composed when you do have the ball, because Liverpool, they won't let you have much of it. But if you look at West Ham in the middle, and that's where the battle is really won. They've got two top guys in Rice and Soucek who are never afraid of the ball. And if you can really, really hold your own in that middle and keep the ball, Rice will get away from you. He's got the body, and then Soucek as well has got the body for it. It's great they have a defensive backline and that is also excellent, but the job is always in the middle. If you've got that screen, just like we can see with us now, where you've got the Ghanaian Partey and also Xhaka as well in tandem. If you have two experienced players like that, it always counts. So that's the first thing, being composed when you've got the ball, because if they ever get past that initial Liverpool rush, then what you see is an opening for Pablo Fornal. You've got an opening incredibly for Antonio, who is able to score goals away from home. His best days are always away from home, where he can really, really run at defenders. And of course, they've got an array of players in the middle there that can really, Said Benrahma has always been fantastic. And
Jared Bowen, that's one
Jared
name.
Bowen, of course, I was going to come to him because he's the crowning glory at the minute. So you give him a sniff, he's going to really hurt you. So how did they get a result? Be confident on the ball, make sure the Rice and Soucek can beat that press, and then they can go and express themselves afterwards. But they're going to need a lot of luck. They're going to need to ride their luck because Liverpool will be relentless.
So what West Ham, Eddie, what West Ham are looking for is to do the double over Liverpool this season. Remember the reverse fixture, they won 3-2. Yeah, 3-2 if I remember very well. But there's so many statistics, as it concerns Liverpool and West Ham, that calls for interest. Now, first of all, Jared Bowen has been in very inspiring form. He's been playing very well. He's going to break a club record this weekend if he plays against Liverpool. One of the things he's done is he's scored very key goals for them. But on the flip side, the last how many games Salah has played against West Ham, he scored 9 goals against them. In his last 9 Premier League matches. So that tells you Salah loves to score against West Ham. But then West Ham have shown Liverpool this season that no matter how you set up the team, no matter who you play, they can hurt you. And then going into this game, Femi talked about Antonio, and Antonio is not been in his killer form like we know he can be. He's not been scoring good goals because lately he's been playing away from the 18-yard box, than he's done before. So let's go back to that West Ham midfield and how they might be set up against Liverpool. Definitely Benrahma might be in that side. Jared Bowen is going to be in that side. How do you play in that middle? You talk about Leeds getting goals from the midfield, and that's one of the things West Ham have done very well. Can you put us through what you think West Ham have done well so far and how they can replicate it against this Liverpool side?
So I like West Ham because they stay compact. Everybody knows what they are doing, on the pitch. And, when you look at, their midfield, it feels like they've got a spine in that midfield. And that's always a good thing for any team, right? You've got, if Mark Noble comes in, see Lanzini, Declan Rice, he's a stalwart in that game. And the thing with Declan Rice for me is that he's actually come into his own. You can see the confidence with him, how he controls the tempo of the game. He is going to make a difference if West Ham is going to do something at Anfield. I know that right now their away form, hasn't been the greatest, but the one thing that West Ham know how to do is that they know how to fight. They have very strong physical players that would not be afraid to go into the channels. You've got Pablo Fornell in that midfield. You've got Susek in that midfield. These are all very, very strong players, and they're tall players as well. So I know that Liverpool are going to struggle in terms of set pieces and trying to score, goals on them. And I feel like they're going to keep, that midfield in check. So Liverpool are going to want to play a very fast tempo in order to be able to take out, what West Ham can do. But if West Ham can keep their shape, let Declan Rice, pretty much dictate what happens in the middle of the pitch, then they've got a chance against Liverpool.
Fun fact, guys. These two teams have scored the most from set pieces, especially corner kicks, than any other sides in the Premier League. So both of them love set pieces. They love the corner kicks and free kicks around the box. And then another thing, they have considered least from set pieces than any other side in the Premier League, apart from Arsenal, by the way. Interesting stats. All right, let's move in. You want to say something, Femi?
No. I was just gonna echo and say this is why I talked about set pieces, because I think West Ham is gonna be key, but I feel like West Ham have got an edge, just because of the kind of players that they have and how good they are again in set pieces.
All right, guys, we're running out of time quickly. Let's go to the Manchester derby. Manchester City, Manchester United. City wants to win that title at all costs. They've dropped some points that they should not have dropped, as in points you would never have expected City to drop. They've dropped. They lost to Tottenham Hotspur. Somehow, Spurs seem to have a number over City. But then, let's look at it against Manchester United. The last 5 meetings between these guys, City won the last one 2-0, lost the one before that 2-0 to United, and then drew the one before that, lost again. So in the last 5 meetings, they've lost 3 times to United. It's a record Pep Guardiola cannot be happy about.
Yeah, he won't be happy about that, to be honest, because he's a very proud man, and you know very much and very well that he's definitely want to always want his team to win. He's a born winner, Pep. And it's almost like I remember when Arsenal could do no wrong against Tottenham, and the great Thierry Henry would always say he never lost to Tottenham. So there are some teams like that you're never ever going to lose to. But Pep feels like that against every team he plays against. Only that when it comes against Man United, one way or the other, there is that little funny feeling like there is just that hesitation. And I hope it doesn't come to the fore again this weekend, because even though United are not great, but then when they play City, they don't need any motivation today. You don't need anyone to come and do a motivational speech for them to know this is where it really, really counts. You've got to put the noisy neighbors, as they call them, in their place. So I reckon, personally, it's going to be an absolute belter of a game. Because Man United are not going to go away easily. But City are more than capable of actually riding the storm and winning this. And especially with the title at stake.
So City have dropped. They dropped some points they shouldn't have dropped. Drew against Southampton, lost against Spurs. A 12-point gap has suddenly become, catchable for Liverpool. Now, Manchester United, one of the biggest problems they've had is the centre-back pairing. They can't seem to decide who the their best pairing have been. They've tried Lindelof with Maguire. They've tried Varane with Maguire. They've tried even Bailly at some point, Eric Bailly with Maguire at some point, but they can't seem to decide who the best centre back. Eddie, if you were Ragnick right now and you want to select your first 11 for that game, I wanted to select your first 11 for the game against City and tell us why. especially your center backs and your midfield pairings?
Okay, so obviously, you've got De Gea in goal, so he comes into goal. The
No
trouble is
questions
that
about that.
usually with centre back pairings, you want one person to be in form, and then you can always have another player come in and augment that. What's happened here is that Harry Maguire has had a very terrible season, by his standards, but of course, he still remains, the person that you want, to come into that game and play in the defense. So I would have him as my centre back pairing there. Then the other person that I will have, beside, Maguire is actually Lindelof. I would want to see Lindelof in the game, and then supported by Luke Shaw and Aaron Wan-Bissaka. I think those that would be my back line. Because I feel like those two, Lindelof and Harry Maguire, probably played the most together. So if you want to talk about in terms of synergy, that partnership, maybe they are brewing something there. So I would have those two as a center back. And then, of course, in my midfield, I want to have Paul Pogba there. Then I want to have Bruno Fernandes in that midfield. And I like Fred. I like what Fred brings to the team.
You like Fred?
Yes, I like what he brings. I like what he brings to the team.
Okay.
I know he's very unfashionable, but he does a very, very good job there. And he will give you maximum effort. And when you're playing against City, a team that likes to pass the ball a lot, you need someone that can put in the shift. So I like the fact that he will put in the shift and he will be able to support, because that Pogba and Bruno Fernandes are going to want to go forward, to join in the attack. So you want to need someone there. I mean, the only other person that I would have put in there is McTominay, but he's not really had a very, very good last couple of games. So I think if there's anyone that could possibly change and come into that midfield, it might be Scott McTominay. And then of course, up front, you want to go with, Ronaldo. I like Elanga actually. I like, what he does with the ball, and it just seems that he hasn't, been affected by the previous history of all the other players that have played there. So I think he's got confidence, to take the ball and go forward. If you watch that last game that he played, he was always taking the ball and thinking about what can I do going forward. So a game like that against Man City, you probably want someone like him that they might not necessarily expect, because there's not a lot of tape, on Elanga. So I'll have him, in there. And the other player, that I'll have there, up front is Jadon Sancho. You want to have him, playing. I know you want to see more goals from him, but I think he's always a threat where he's with the ball. So that's how I would set up, if I was setting up against Man City, that would be my team.
Very interesting. Femi,
Yeah.
do you think differently?
To be fair, I don't even think of Man United, not to talk of differently. I can't believe he's taking the time to delve into their team. I just personally, I hope they get trounced 4-0 or 5-0. Doesn't matter to me. So only for the sake of my fantasy team, I might have maybe Bruno, if he's still in my team for the weekend, have him score a goal and they lose 4-1 or 4-2. So, but in the end, he's actually come up with a very strong team there, a very strong team. But what they need to do, as always, is they're going to need to ride the storm, and they're not going to get many chances. But whatever they do get, they need to be very clinical with it.
Can they ride this Manchester City storm?
Exactly. So ride the storm,
Can they?
and then can they? Yes, you can. With anything in life.
Not the United I've seen lately. Not the United I've seen lately.
I'll give you a very.
Everton almost rode the storm, didn't they? It was 1-0 very late in the game, so it's not impossible.
Well,
I'll give you an interesting stat. You know that these two teams have one of the lowest conversions right now in the Premiership.
Yep.
Between Man City and Man United. So it's not like I see Man City is in their pump, scoring goals for fun. Lately, they've really been struggling. You wouldn't think of Man City and then say they're not scoring a lot of goals. But Man City has a 36% conversion rate and Man United have 35%. So, and they're hitting the same amount of shots almost, towards go over 3,000 shots. So that for me, tells me that, this game might be closer than what people think, actually.
We need to round up, guys.
Yeah.
But before we run away, we're going to talk about Arsenal for 2 minutes.
Yes.
Well, for 2 minutes. All right. So, quick one. Fun fact: Manchester United are looking for their 4th consecutive away competitive victories against Manchester City. They're looking for their 4th straight away victories in all competitions against Manchester City. But then City they are looking to complete the league double over Man United for just the 2nd time under Pep Guardiola. That's how difficult it has been to play against Manchester United. No matter how poor United plays, they seem to find a way around Manchester City. But hey, we'll find out what happens at the weekend. But before we run away, guys, now 1 minute 30 seconds. Arsenal away at Watford. Quick one. Femi, starting with you.
So
Arsenal
away at Watford, if we were at home, I would make it a definite win. Away at Watford, I'm also confident it will be a win because Watford have not been great at home.
No.
They've actually, in spite of what's been happening with Roy, they've done well. They've drawn one, and they went to. Would you ever believe that they were going to win away? Their last game 1-0. But also then go to Man United and draw 0-0 as well. Away from home, they've looked very strong, but at home, they haven't looked as great, and they've lost some silly games at home. So I hope their home form continues that way. We've got the team. Away from home, we're very solid as well. In fact, whatever Arsenal say these days, there's that solidity about Arsenal. And with the team being built on the back. So Watford, they're not going to be easy. But I think
should get the job done. Eddie, what do you think?
Arsenal is riding on a lot of confidence. You cannot say what that game against Wolves, in fact, the 2 games against Wolves has done to Arsenal confidence. Going away to the Molineux, a very difficult place to play, and winning that game with 10 men has done a lot for Arsenal's confidence away from home. So I expect a very, very tenacious Arsenal. It helps that they are playing 1 game a week. So I think they will have their tactics spot on, for Watford. And if Arsenal score very early, it could be almost similar to Norwich, in terms of what Arsenal does to Watford. Because I think that right now, Arsenal has got a rhythm that they are playing towards and a lot of confidence. And when you have young players and confidence, they seem like they're unstoppable. So for me, I think it will be an Arsenal victory.
All right, so quick fun fact before we run out of here. Last 6 games against Watford in the Premier League, away or home, Arsenal have won 5 and drawn just 1. Arsenal, Emil Smith-Rowe will, if he scores at the weekend, is going to set a record. Well, it's going to equal a record set by Nicolas Anelka for Arsenal for player 821 or under to reach double figures in a Premier League season for Arsenal. Nicolas Anelka did it in the 1998-99 season. But since Roy Hodgson took over Watford have kept 3 clean sheets in their 6 Premier League matches under him. So it tells you how organized he's made them in recent time. Guys, it's been a fun time doing this, but we need to review this weekend. And we're making a promise to all our fans, all our subscribers, everybody who watches us, that next week we'll definitely come with a review of everything that happens at the weekend. Femi, Eddie, it's always good to hang out with you guys.
Always good, Kali. Always good. Let's do this again.